Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Hello dear Kardec Radio listeners, welcome to the messengers in our home. My name is Franziska Kranz.
And I am Mackenzie Mellon.
So tonight we're here to discuss about chapter 2, which is entitled Aniceto. And before we start, we would like to say an opening prayer to tune ourselves in and prepare ourselves for our meeting. So Mackenzie, would you be so kind and say the prayer for us, please?
Oh yeah, sure. Dear God, our friend, our loving Creator, here we are once again to study a little bit more about the truths of life so that we can, through this knowledge, know more about ourselves and about you, so that we can spread your love wherever we go, whatever we do. May your blessings be always with us, but more than be with us, that we may notice these blessings in our lives, for they are everywhere and at every moment in our day-to-day businesses, work, studies, and life. May your love be present and be with all the ones who are following this and the other programs on Kardec Radio, so that we all together create a network of light to help improve this world we live in. May your love and your peace be with us, not only now, but always. So be it.
So be it. And without further ado, let us now listen to the reading of chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Aniceto. I told Tobias about my new plans and couldn't help noticing how pleased he was. Don't worry, he said kindly. You have the necessary number of work hours to justify your request. We have a large number of colleagues in communication, so it won't be hard to get you set up with amiable instructors. Have you met our esteemed Aniceto? I haven't had the pleasure. He's a former co-worker. He worked with us in regeneration for some time. After that, he devoted himself to self-sacrificing duties in assistance, and today he is a qualified instructor in communication, where he has been doing remarkable work. I'll talk it over with Minister Genesio. Don't worry, I think your desire is very praiseworthy, Andre. My esteemed friend left me in a sea of inexpressible contentment. I had begun to understand the value of work. The spirit of service had shown my soul that Narcisa and Tobias's friendship was a treasure of immeasurable worth. A new area of struggle was about to unfold, and I could not miss this chance. Nosolar was full of spirits who longed for an opportunity like this. Mightn't it be to my advantage to offer myself willingly to this new learning experience? And since I was sure that I would be returning to the flesh in the not-too-distant future, such an arrangement would be an extremely important undertaking for my overall self-improvement. I was completely overcome by a mysterious joy, and a sublime hope illuminated my sentiments. Narcissa had aroused a burning desire to work on behalf of others, and it now seemed to fill the empty vessel of my heart. Yes, I would work. I would come to know the satisfaction of those who toil anonymously for the happiness of others. I would seek the wondrous light of fraternity by serving them. That night Tobias came looking for me. Always obliging, he brought me the comforting news of Minister Genesio's acquiescence. With a kindly smile, he invited me to accompany him to see Aniceto, so that we could discuss the matter. I was filled with excitement as I went with him to the home of the new personage, who was to be fundamentally linked to my life as a spirit from then on. Unlike Tobias, Aniceto was not spiritually married to anyone in No Solar. He and 5 of his former disciples from Earth were living in a comfortable structure nestled among leafy, graceful trees that stood like sentries guarding the large, marvelous rose garden. His kindly welcome made an excellent impression on me. He exuded the calm appearance of a man who had reached adulthood without the delusions of inexperienced youth. Although his face expressed great enthusiasm, he displayed the healthy optimism of a heart filled with sacred ideals. He listened serenely as my benefactor explained my situation, casting friendly and searching glances at me from time to time. Tobias spoke at length. He mentioned that I had been a doctor down on the earth, but that I was now readjusting my values on the spirit plane. After studying me closely, Aniceto said, "I don't see anything that would make me say no, my dear Tobias, but it all depends on the candidate. You know that this colony is known as the institution of the new human." "Andre is ready and willing," replied my friend. Aniceto gave me a penetrating look and warned, "The work we do is varied and demanding. Our department only accepts workers interested in discovering the joy of serving others. We are mutually committed not to complain about anything at all. No one expects personal praise for a job well done, and we all answer for any errors we might commit. All of us here are in the process of extinguishing the old personal vanities that we brought with us from Earth. Within the hierarchical structure of our obligations, we are interested only in the divine good. We realize that every constructive opportunity comes from our Father, and this conviction helps us ignore the improper demands of our lower self." Taking note of my surprise, Aniceto made a meaningful gesture and continued, "For the endeavor of preparing active co-workers, we have a supplementary staff that has 50 openings for trainees. At the moment, there are 3 openings left. The training is very intense for those who are going to provide emergency assistance down on the earth. Some instructors prefer to be accompanied by all their trainees as they do their work there, but I use a different approach. I usually divide my students into specialized groups according to their professions so that they can make the best use of their training and practice. So, I currently have a Roman Catholic priest, a doctor, 6 engineers, 4 teachers, 4 nurses, 2 painters, 11 women specializing in domestic work, and 18 laborers of various types. Here in No Solar, we carry out the activities entrusted to us as a whole group, but on days when I work down on Earth, not all of my students come with me. Of course, the engineers or laborers, for example, would not be denied the opportunity to acquire knowledge that reaches beyond the realm of their areas of specialty, but it would have to consist of self-initiated efforts during the ample time that everyone receives for rest and entertainment. With regard to our current work, then, we want to make the best use of our time, not only to benefit those who need our fraternal aid, but also to help ourselves in terms of effectiveness. Aniceto took a long pause as I pondered this curious approach. After probing me with all his attention, as if he wanted to perceive the effect of his words, he continued, "This method is not meant to create more obligations for everybody. Here, as on earth, the one who actually learns the most in class and on field trips is not the student, but the instructor, who enriches his or her observations and deepens his or her level of experience. When Minister Espiritual recruited me for this job, I accepted on condition that I wouldn't be wasting any time on my own betterment and education. That way, I wouldn't have to branch out into other areas. I think I've said enough for now. If you are willing, I can't possibly say no." "Your program sounds truly remarkable," I responded excitedly. "It would be an honor to serve under you." The look on Aniceto's face indicated that I had given him the answer he was looking for, and so he concluded, "Very well, you may begin tomorrow." Turning to Tobias, he added, "Early tomorrow morning, send our friend here to the messenger center. I will be giving a class there, and I'll see to it that Andre is given the bonuses according to communications guidelines." Highly pleased, we thanked him. Then I said goodbye to Tobias, filled with a new sense of hope. Translator's notes. To know more about Tobias's case, see the book No Solar, chapter 38, entitled Tobias's Case. When Aniceto mentions the bonuses, he is making a reference to the hour bonus, the non-monetary standard of payment in No Solar. Also, to know more about the hour bonus, see the book No Solar, chapter 22.
Yeah, Mackenzie, here we are again, thankfully. After Andre's renewal, his internal renewal, after the experiences he made in the book No Solar, and the summary of all the internal changes that had happened to him throughout that time. Now with the book The Messengers, we learned already what happened, and Narcisa gave him some advice, and he feels ready now to take the next step. So in this chapter, he goes to Tobias to talk about his plans. Right, Mackenzie?
Yes, that is correct, Francisca. And first, I'd like to thank you once again for making the time to be together. It's so much fun when we are recording together so that we can interact my ideas and your ideas together. As you were mentioning about the renewal, right? Last week we had the first chapter, which is naturally entitled Renewal. And you were mentioning that Andre was renewed, and it was, and I completely agree with you. But what is interesting is, as we were talking before the show here, it is an ongoing process, right? It's something that doesn't happen at once, as he actually mentioned on chapter 1, and is, if we can just step back a little bit and remember some of the words on the first chapter where he says that he felt like a mollusk. And okay, if he feels like a mollusk, and we know that one day we will be angels, or to use a more spiritist word, highly evolved spirit, from feeling like a mollusk to become a highly evolved spirit, it takes a while, right? So it is interesting that he mentions that and that he uses this word, because it just shows us that it is possible, because we're going to talk about a, let's say, more evolved spirit here, which is Aniceto, the title of the chapter, and talking to this that once was a mollusk that's trying to learn with a more evolved spirit. So he wants to become a better person. He wants to become a better spirit. So it is very interesting that this process, it may take a while, but it is worth doing. It is worth following the path after that first strain of renewal, that first, as he says, the hole that tilled the soil, or that big flood that tilled the soil and that's moving him, helping him move around. So it is very interesting that he comes from that renewal to continue his personal renewal, talking to old friends and meeting new friends, trying to be of help, trying to become a better spirit. And that's how he starts the chapter when he says that he goes to Tobias, which is one of his friends. If you don't know who Tobias is, we highly recommend, as I said quite a few times last week, going back to Nosso Lar and reading the book. In the book, we know more about Tobias and who he is, who he was, how he progressed. We meet some of Tobias's friends, Tobias's family, and so on. So Andre comes to Tobias because Tobias is a spirit that he really trusts, and he tells Tobias about his plans. And as all the good friends are, once we are telling a good story about ourselves and what we plan to do with our lives, and friends of something good that happened in our lives, a good friend will always be happy for us, independently if that thing will make me go away from that person, because sometimes new struggles in life or new efforts that I'm making to become a better person may take me away from that person. But it's not because I'm not going to be together with you anymore that I'm not going to be happy for you. So it is interesting that Andres tells Tobias the story, and he says that he noticed how pleased Tobias was with those news. Tobias naturally answers that. He says, "Don't worry, you have the necessary number of work hours to justify your request." And then he goes on and tells something else, asking him if he have met Aniceto, and that's where we first hear a little bit about him, right, Francisca?
Yeah, that's right. And I just want to mention one more thing about this networking or this life in community, because you mentioned already that Tobias is happy for him, but also he says we have lots of colleagues in the Ministry of Communication, so it won't be hard to get you set up with amiable instructors. So the spirits know each other. They all go through their own process, but they keep in touch, like you said. So, and it's natural for them that they are keen on helping newcomers, so to speak, or spirits who are on the colony less time than they are. And so they lend their hands and they reach out for them to give them the next best possible learning experience. And Tobias is gonna still keep in touch with Andre as well. And he's helping for him to be able to make the next step. And as you said, Aniceto, first he introduces him talking to Andre about him, where he knows him, that they used to work in regeneration, and that he's been sacrificing himself, Aniceto, in assistance. And so you see that he as well has a journey of learning through the different ministries, and that now he's a qualified instructor in communication, where he's been doing remarkable work. And interesting is also, I think, that he says, I'll talk it over with Minister Genesio. So he's in a position to help Andre to get him in contact with Aniceto, but he's not doing so without the permission of the superior, which is Minister Genesio. So it's like, in a way, a mentor who is overlooking Andre's process. And when Andre is ready, he's gonna get the next opportunity to work on himself and improve himself, acquire new skills on the intellectual level, but on the heart level, on the emotional level as well. But he says already, oh, don't worry, what you want is praiseworthy. The other spirits around Andre are happy for him to assume responsibility for his own journey and the willingness to work, to learn, and to serve. And then there is this part where he reflects by himself, talking about that he had understood the value of work, the spirit of service, and also he's now cherishing and appreciating so much the friendship that Narcisa and Tobias had been showing to him. Narcisa in the last chapter, as we've discussed, in helping him to understand what was going on inside of himself. And now on the external level, Tobias offering. That's a great suggestion you got from Narcisa. Here's the opportunity and here's the next step we're taking, right, Mackenzie?
Yeah, that's right, Francisca. It's interesting that, and I love the way you put the word networking here, because we hear about it so much these days that we should network and have friends and so on. The question that is raised here, though, about this networking, and that's the point that I like a lot about this, is he is not here talking about, oh, I'm doing this network with an interest, right? I'm not creating friendships here just because I want to take something out of it. I'm not creating artificial friendships here just to know a lot of people. No, he is actually creating love with these connections. Maybe we can start by creating artificial connections, and then we turn these artificial connections into real connections and connections of love. But that's the goal that we need to set for ourselves. If we want to jump from the surface and go deeper into what you were saying, the heart or the feelings or the sentiments, creating real bonds and not just superficial bonds. And that's what he is doing. So when he goes and talks to Narcisa, as you mentioned, or he talks to Tobias, he is really pouring himself off to those friends. And he feels the friendship back. And that's what he says when he says, the spirit of service had shown my soul the value of Narcisa and Tobias' friendship. Because he understood, not because of what he did to them or because of what they did to them, but because of how he understood what to serve really means, what to really put himself in the position to do something. But having gone through all that in No Solar and having worked with Narcisa, worked with Tobias, now he says something new is starting to happen, and I want to learn. I know that all those people at one point wanted to learn and trying to learn more and more. A lot of the spirits in No Solar really want an opportunity like this. Shouldn't I take the advantage of this? The opportunity is opening up, and shouldn't I be one to take the opportunity to really go and offer himself willingly to this new learning experience? And by knowing Andre, it would be unnatural for him not to take this, because he's really curious. We talked about this also in No Solar. He really wants to learn. He mentions that Narcisa, knowing how willing I was to work on anything, she tells me about this work. And then here he says, well, I want to take this work. So he was really wishful that this opportunity would not be thrown away. That's why he is so happy that Tobias is putting a word for him. But once again, not because he has influence or anything, but because of this real network of feelings, of good sentiments that he is creating along the path that he's choosing to follow. There's one thing I find it quite interesting here, and we may know more about this throughout the series. And when I mean throughout the series of the books, I mean throughout the 13 or 16 books, depending on how we look at it, of this No Solar series, is that Andre says that since I was sure that I would be returning to the flesh in the not too distant future, when he is there, discarnated, he is thinking that because he already knows that he will come back, he is saying, okay, why don't I take the opportunity to learn more, to do more, so that I can improve myself more before coming back? It is a very interesting thought, and we can transpose this to here also. If we are here and we know that we don't die, that we will go back to the spiritual world, why don't we take the opportunity to learn? Thank God we are here at Kardec Radio at this moment and reading, studying, thinking about this, and looking at this as something that's very, or as Andre puts here, extremely important undertaking for my overall self-improvement. So it is praiseworthy of all of you guys who are listening to us here, and to some degree to ourselves here, me, Francisca, and everybody that does Kardec Radio, that we are taking this opportunity to really learn together, to study together, so that we can actually use these teachings as something that's extremely important for our overall self-improvement. Do you feel the same way, Francisca, or how do you feel about this?
Yeah, Mackenzie, that's an interesting thought, because we learn in the Spirits book, for example, spirits influence us much more than we are aware of. So this interconnection between the two planes, the spiritual world and the material world, is taking place at all times, if you're aware of it or not. And actually, the more we become aware of it, the more we equip ourselves to understand it better, and also to make the most out of for ourselves, in the sense of learning and growing with each other. So Andre, as you mentioned, says, I'm aware that I'm going to be back on Earth at some point, and until now, I didn't know about this work of the spiritual plane on the material plane, but here I have an opportunity to learn about the exchange that happens between the two spheres, and it's going to be very useful for me in the future, because I'm going to go back. I don't get tired to repeat again that even though we're in the flesh right now, still through sleep time, and not only through that, we are going back to the spirit world, and we are being influenced in a positive or in a negative way, depending where we put our thoughts and what our objectives are. So it's actually an illusion to think that all of this is far away. It's happening right here and right now with us, and we are spirits, right? So this awareness of the existence of the spiritual world, and as that being the origin for us, is so important that we really only make life easier for us the more we study and the more we learn to understand that better. And in a way, funnily enough, that's what Andre is doing right now, because he's discarnate, but he has no idea of what's going on in the spirit world. So he's enrolling in this course not only to learn about the life in the spirit world, but also how he can help the people who are still on earth, like some of his family members. And that's the purpose of this course that he's enrolling with Aniceto, to learn how to lend aid on a visible and invisible form on earth. Also, he's mentioning that the burning desire to work on behalf of others now seemed to fill the empty vessel of his heart. And if you remember last week, we were talking about that he felt so empty, that he felt that it didn't make much sense with him, because now he felt that fraternal love to his ex-wife and children, but he was still looking for the nourishment for his soul. And he said, he's got all this goodwill to learn and to work, but he's emotionally empty. And with time passing and with the reflection that he's continuing to do, he allows the desire to work and to serve others, meaning cooperating and collaborating in the community in the bigger sense, for that to take over the emptiness of his heart, because he's learning to understand that we are all part of God's family. And that's something that is so beautiful, that we can learn from the spirits as they are described here, is that they all have the desire and the wish to help each other grow. Like Narcisa is giving good input to Andre, she's helping him, she's planning him. Everyone else who's working is talking to Andre, is answering his questions as much as they can, obviously, between the time. As you know, he's very curious, so sometimes he goes over the edge or asks questions when there's not the right time. But in general speaking, they're all willing to share their knowledge, to share the experiences, so that whoever comes later has an opportunity to learn and to grow with him. And it's really, for me, it's always that image of going hand in hand with each other, instead of trying to put the other person down, as we experience oftentimes here on earth, because we feel so in competition with people. We make this separation even within our families or work environment. I get the impression that we are so afraid to be rejected that we don't even dare to get in contact with new people. And I actually had a very nice experience this morning that I went to a treatment, and the woman was just talking about what she's doing and I was sharing, and we were helping each other. And then she made an offer to say, you know what, you can do this for me, you have this and I can do that for you. So it's the sense of, I don't know you, but you know, we need each other. We need each other to make life as good as we can. And this idea of working together, and if you remember earlier, the families were much bigger as they are now. Now everybody's traveling and living wherever they want, and more often parents and other siblings are far away. But a few years ago, maybe many years ago, depending on how you look at it, the families, the generations were living together, so it was normal that the grandparents would help educate the grandchildren. So there was this natural flow of support that we don't have now, because the liberty that we conquered and the freedom that we conquered is great in many ways, but it also has the downside that whenever we isolate ourselves too much, suddenly everything is on our shoulders, and there comes the point where you think, oh, I don't know how to do. Of course, you can do everything, so to speak, but it's much nicer if you are lending a hand to somebody here, a neighbor, or even a strange person like that health practitioner this morning. I think that's a very valuable lesson for us, to open our hearts and to think in the bigger picture as well. And I think that connects with your question, Mackenzie, right now, because if we narrow our minds and only think about, oh, I've got 40, 50 more years on this life, and I completely ignore what comes in the afterlife, in the spirit realm, and that we are coming back. So whatever we do and contribute in a good way here on Earth, on planet Earth, to help the planet evolve as well, or maintain the planet, the ecosystems and everything, the balance of nature, we might benefit from it in the future as well. So that obviously doesn't say that we are doing things just for selfish reasons, but I mean that we are responsible for what we do. And when we work together and when we learn to see an opportunity of learning and growth and of love in the other person, no matter how far they seem to be from us, because, you know, if they're not blood related in this life, first, we don't know what happened in the past, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Andre talks to himself saying, yes, I would work. I would come to know the satisfaction of those who toil anonymously for the happiness of others. I would seek the wondrous light of fraternity by serving them. So it's really this preparation that comes from the inside and the preparation that comes from the outside. So he changed his attitude a lot from being a pretty selfish doctor on earth to an immortal soul that's in the afterlife and that's learning how things work, who a soul that becomes aware of the responsibility we all share as children of God. Right, Mackenzie?
Yeah, Francisca, while you were thinking, I was thinking of this sentence. Maybe I heard from somebody. I'm not sure who it is. If you know, let me know. Somebody said that we are immortal spirits sharing a common humanity. So it is interesting to think of ourselves as such, because if we are immortal, we will inherit what we do. Right? Even if we sometimes use the word selfish only in negative ways. But even if we think selfishly, what would be best for me would be that the world was a better place, right? Depending on what I do, I will not leave this world a better place for myself, even if I think selfishly, right? So this grows even more when I think of it in the light of fraternity. If I'm planning to do and leave a better world, for example, for my children, even being selfishly familial here, meaning that, okay, I'm doing this only for my family, right? Emphasis on the my here. I need to do something that's best for the family, not only for myself. So if I keep increasing the size of this family to my closest friends, and then to the friends of my friends, and then to the friends of my friends of my friends, and so on, it will lead me to think that, okay, I have responsibility with this world, because it will, in the end, be the world that I live in and that I will come back to, and the universe that I was born into. So it is really interesting to think of ourselves as part of this common humanity, and that we should start do more and more, just like the example that you used, the experience that you had this morning, because that's how it is, right? If we are not there for the others, and I always like to think about this, when I say, okay, let me do this for the others, anybody else other than me will have others in their lives too. And I am one of the others, right? So we are all the others. We are others to everybody, every single living being in this planet. So when I do to somebody else, in the end, I am actually doing to myself also. So it is a circle, and just like that music from The Lion King, it's the circle of life, right? It encircles, it leads us turning and turning and turning and coming back. If we don't pay attention, we will always come back to the same place, and we will have not evolved. But if we are willing to, we will evolve, we will progress, while, like Andre says here, doing something for the happiness of others. It's like you beautifully said, filling the empty vessel of my heart, of his heart, as he says here, remembering the advice that Narcissa gave to him on the first chapter. But moving along, that same night, he goes on and says, Tobias comes back and tells him that Minister Genesios agreed to what Andre was asking to do. I want to remember here and to remind everyone once again, it's not because I am asking that I will be given. That's one of the first things. At all times, Andre went in Nosolar to ask for something, and he was denied at that first moment. It is explained to him why he can't do it. And we need to understand that sometimes it will not be given just because we are asking. Sometimes because we don't know what we are asking. But once we know more and more about ourselves, we will be given what we want, because we are aware of at least part of what I am asking. And that's why Minister Genesio agrees to what he asks, to what Andre asks. Also because he proved to himself and to his friends around him that he was able to work by working almost that full year in Nosolar and becoming naturally a citizen of Nosolar. So after Minister Genesio agrees to what he asks, Bias goes back, tells this to Andre, and he invites Andre to go and meet Aniceto, the one that's the title of the chapter. And Andre is really excited to do this. He wants to meet, finally, this Aniceto, and he says that this friend, this new character, this new personage, this new man, this new spirit, was to be fundamentally linked to his life as a spirit from then on. So he didn't know Aniceto, but from then on, Aniceto will be linked to Andre Luiz's life. And then he mentions Tobias again, going back to Nosolar, to the book Nosolar, which we, once again, recommend everybody to go back to No Solar in chapter 38 to know a little bit more about Tobias's story. And he says Aniceto was not spiritually married to anyone in No Solar. They were living together in a comfortable, he mentions here, comfortable structure nestled among leafy, graceful trees that stood like sentries, guarding the large, marvelous rose garden. And here, Francisca, as we were discussing also prior to the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about Aniceto and what Aniceto really means. I mean, the word Aniceto. And here's the first word that I had missed, and I just noticed. The word guarding, sentries guarding the large, marvelous rose garden. It is really interesting because the word Aniceto, as we were researching, comes from Greek, and Aniceto was, and in English the word is Anicetos, Anicetos, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, was a god that used to guard the gates of Mount Olympus, together with his brother, his twin brother. And Aniceto means, from Greek, unconquerable or invincible. So it's quite a nice name for a guard to have, right? So if you put a guard on a gate that his name is invincible, I don't know who is going to try to enter that gate, because if the person is invincible, it's better for you to become friends with him than to try to go through him, right? So it is very interesting that Aniceto and 5 of his disciples, or former disciples from Earth, were living in a comfortable structure nestled among leafy, graceful trees that stood like sentries guarding the large, marvelous rose garden, that stood like guards. So it is to me very interesting that the names of these spirits who are chosen, right? We don't know if their names were those. We're talking about not precise definition, but that words have meanings. And it is very interesting that he is this guard that will allow or not allow Andre to go into his group of training. Right, Francisca?
Yeah, that's right, Mackenzie. Andre is very pleased with the appearance of Aniceto and the kind welcome that he received by Aniceto. And I think it's clear for us that a spirit on that level of Aniceto is someone who will be kind and welcoming and optimistic on a general level. So if he's receiving the visit of a future pupil, so to speak, he's gonna be there to have a look at Andre and to see whether he's suitable for the course he's wanting to participate in or not. And Andre always describes to us as how he sees the spirits, architecture, and the things that he's observing in the spiritual world, so that we can have a more vivid picture of how the life in the spirit world is. So he's mentioning that Aniceto is exuding a calm appearance, and his face expressed enthusiasm and optimism of a heart filled with sacred ideals. So he's looking to the features of Aniceto that he's admiring a little bit, or that he's looking up to, and that he's wishing to develop as well. Because if you have a benefactor or a mentor or a teacher, you normally look up to him in a certain way, and you want to learn things from him or her, and not only from their words or from their actions, but also just from the way they behave. So that's why we always say that it's so important to set the example, and that words can do a lot of good, but they can as well, if it's just words without a congruent behavior and actions combined to it, then it doesn't work. And here as well, interesting to the theme of networking that we were saying, it was Tobias who spoke lengthily about Andre's situation, because he knows Aniceto and he knows what Aniceto wants to hear. I guess I can say it like that. So his explanations of Andre's situation, that he now is in the spirit world readjusting his values, Aniceto says to him, well, I don't see a reason why I should say no, my dear Tobias, showing his care and respect for him as well. But it all depends on the candidate. And here first he mentioned this title of Nosolar being an institution of the new human. So what is that new human? I think between the lines we've been talking about it a lot, because Nosolar has been the explanation for us to see how Andre has been transforming himself internally and externally, and that he has a strong desire and a strong wish to become a better, or so to speak, a new human, taking our development as a society or as the human race to the next level. And the world as well, because we know the planets all have different stages of evolvement, and we are contributing in whichever direction we choose to make the world a better place or let it stagnate. And the same is with us. The law of progress shows us that the movement is constantly forward. We can turn around and take some extra rounds, but we never go back. If we really learn something, if we really acquire a skill, there's no turning back. We've absorbed it in a way that it sticks to us. So if somebody says, oh, he fell back again, this just means that the lesson wasn't learned 100%. And again, still, Tobias is talking to Aniceto in front of Andre, confirming that Andre is ready and willing. So Aniceto, because he's doing this selection process, he says in a warning voice, the work here is demanding, and our department only accepts workers interested in discovering the joy of serving others. And we are mutually committed not to complain about anything at all. So he is telling Andre the rules. And like you mentioned before with his name, like a guardian, in a way you could say that Aniceto is guarding the secrets of some parts of the communication between the spirits and the incarnates and the work that they do behind the scenes, because for most of us it's not visible. So he is testing Andre, and he's testing whether he's really willing to do this next step, to give the best of himself, to serve wholeheartedly and to commit to serve others, to commit not to complain, but to be in a position of observing, of learning and contributing, of working, no matter what. And he goes on saying, no one expects personal praise for a job well done, and we all answer for any errors we might commit. It's not important who does this or that. The work belongs to everyone, and everyone is needed in his or her position to do his or her part of the job. And if something goes wrong, it's not like here that we play the blame game here on earth, right? It's not, oh, it was him, no, he's guilty. No, something went wrong. It's the responsibility to make it right is for all of us. So he's talking about the old vanities that we brought from earth, and that they are within the structures and within their obligations. The essence is that they're only interested in the divine good. What we were talking about of the universal family, the need for living in community and helping each other, it all adds up and comes together to learn to see the good in others and to learn to do the good and help others grow as well. And not only to put ourselves into perspective with our position among the spirits that are more or less on our level of evolution, but also what is our relationship to God? Do we understand that every constructive opportunity comes from God, that there is divine providence helping us, giving us opportunities, but that essentially God is the first cause of everything, of all things, and the highest intelligence in the universe. So we have a caring entity, if I can say it that way, that's watching over us and that's watching over our progress in a much bigger sense than we were discussing here, that Andre Luis has, Tobias and Minister Genesio and other people that are watching over him and giving him the opportunities to develop and evolve. But if we go back a little bit and broaden our perspective once more, we are face to face to God. And then the question for us is, what is the relationship between me and my Creator, the Creator of the universe and of everything? Am I appreciating the opportunities, the challenges that come along my way? Because Aniceto said, it won't be easy. The work is varied and demanding, but it's all worth the while, because it's the opportunity to grow, to improve, and to collaborate with a bigger sense. Right, Mackenzie?
Yeah, it's always to collaborate with the whole process, right? With the whole work, with the work that helps everybody. It's not, like you said before, it's not for selfish, it's not for me, it's for everybody. As if I am a cell in a living organism, I may need to eat to survive, but if I die, and a lot of my friends die, I can damage the whole body. So it's for me, but it's also for everybody. And that's the struggle that we need to understand. I need to have some of the wishes or some of the needs that need to be filled within myself, but also the needs of everybody. So it's always this balance. And I need to understand to ignore, as he says in the very end there, the improper demands of our lower self. Because once we understand that our work is for everybody, for the divine good, I will learn to ignore improper demands. So see that he is using here the word improper. He's not using here a word that says, okay, I am demanding this because I am hungry. I at least need a small loaf of bread. Otherwise, I cannot continue. So this would be a proper demand. I'm hungry. I don't eat. It's been, 72 hours. I'm just throwing out a number here, a crazy number. It's very hard for a person to not eat for 72 hours. But there will be a moment where I need to do something for my body. Right? I need to do something for myself, but what is improper is to be complaining, as he says, is to be expecting something that I don't need to expect. It's not needed for the work to be done. It is a very interesting thing to say, but as you also mentioned, Francisca, it is very hard for those who are listening. That's what Andres says in the very next sentence when he says, taking note of my surprise, right? So Andre was probably expecting something lighter to be said, right? Something, oh, Andre, come here, let me give you a hug and let's go work. No, going together with what you said, what Aniceto did was, okay, I'm going to just a little bit here, just try to nudge you out of this service, because it depends on the person who wants to do it. So what I'm going to show up front here is that, okay, it has a good thing to it, but remember, it's not something for the lower self. It's for somebody who is really interested in serving others. It is a work for those who are really interested in becoming the new human. So I'm just telling you this right up front here. Don't come here expecting that I will be praising you for a job that you needed to do and that you needed to do well. Nobody's going to say anything to you about this. And we all will answer for any errors that we might commit. It's a really, really great responsibility that we're taking. So I'm just warning you. That's basically what Aniceto is doing here. He's, like you said, he's protecting this work and say, this is serious. We're not joking here. We really need somebody who is committed to do this. So Andre is surprised right at that moment, and Aniceto continues. making a meaningful gesture. He says that for this work of preparing active coworkers, we have a staff that has 50 spaces, openings for trainees, and there are only 3 spaces left, and one may be yours. But look, the training is very intense for those who are going to provide emergency assistance down on the earth. Why is that? Let's imagine here, I'm going to, let's say, to the Arctic Circle, right? Live or do some work there, a research work. And I know what the work is. I know it's in the Arctic Circle, ice all over the place, basically no warm days, no warm nights, cold at all times, harsh weather. So I know that will be hard. And then to prepare to go there, go to live in Australia, for example, and go to the beach. How can I prepare to do that kind of work if I'm not actually training in situations that are as harsh as the real work? Aniceto is not telling us anything that we don't already know here. He's just warning us, hey, the training is very intense for those who are going to provide emergency assistance down on the earth. It's going to be tough, but you need to do if you want to do it. And sometimes we complain, oh, but I have a harsh teacher in my classroom. Oh, but that person in the Spiritist Center she doesn't talk very well, or she talks too loud, or she does that. He is so harsh with his words. And how will I be able to train my patience, to train my resignation, to change myself if I don't learn to live together with those types of personalities? And do I think of myself and think about, okay, what are those other people looking at me, and what do they have to put up with when they're living with me, right? Am I harsh? Am I sometimes too silent? Do I talk too much? Am I too demanding? Aniceto is really, really explaining to us here that it is hard, but it always has a purpose. And then comes a part here that I find to be really, really interesting, because now he's going to explain, say, number of people who are doing what, and he says, first of all, some instructors, and he is one of the instructors, right? Some instructors prefer to be accompanied by all their trainees as they do their work there, but I use a different approach. This comes with a very interesting note. Sometimes we think that the way we do is the only right way to do stuff. I don't know if it's something because it's how we grew up with, and then once we start doing something, we think that that's the only way of doing it and the others are wrong, or it's because we are just, I don't know, too selfish to learn to look to others, or too proud to see that maybe there's another person that does it different and that does it better than I do. But what Aniceto is telling us here is that even in the spirit world, there are different instructors who are basically the same level as he is, and they use different approaches to do the same kind of work that he does. So what he's doing, he's telling us here is, hey, once you decide with your group how to go with the work, and if that situation or that the way that you're doing is good, is giving good responses, it is helping your group and everybody together, there's no point in looking at another group and say, hey, why don't you do this? Or why don't we do the way that they are doing? Well, we can always improve, we can always learn, we can always read new methods of doing this or that work. But there can be many ways of working together and having the work done, right? And being able to complete the work. So he says that he usually divides his students into groups that are specialized according to their profession. So he puts together a group that have certain characteristics, and then he divides his students throughout these groups with specific characteristics so that they can make the best use of their training and practice. This is one way of looking at it. But as he said, there can be different approaches. For example, if you have a group of people, they are very different. They have different interests, but they want to learn with each other, and they want to learn across disciplines, for example. So let's merge them together and see how it goes. And then he says that he currently has he has a Roman Catholic priest. It's so interesting to see this, right? On a spiritual realm, we have spirits that died. Naturally, we have spirits of priests, of pastors, of spiritists, of Jews, of Muslims, of Buddhists. We will all be there because we are immortal spirits, and there is no difference in no problem in putting them together to work, because if you want to reach better to a Catholic here that are incarnated, who better than a Roman Catholic priest that died, right? They will understand each other better, they will know better what they're talking about, and so on and so forth. So and then he has in his group a doctor, 6 engineers, 4 teachers, 4 nurses, 2 painters, 11 women specializing in domestic work, and 18 laborers of various types. They go in and out, work together, trying to do the job that they are entrusted to as a whole group. But when he goes down on earth, not all of them come with him. Why? Because he will take the smaller group who fits best the job or the work that needs to be done when they are on work.
I just think it's wonderful how this book, same way as No Solar, offers us so much food for thought. And we could go on and talk about every sentence and what's in between the lines and so on. But to keep us going now, as you mentioned that Aniceto has his method of work and explains to Andre what to expect. And we're just talking about that he's dividing the group when he goes down on a mission on Earth or on a task down on Earth, using the ones who are best equipped for that. But he also says no one is denied the opportunity to acquire knowledge beyond the realm of the areas of specialty, because he would have said, okay, but what's with the person specialized in domestic work or the engineer? Is he never going to get a chance because there's a doctor or there's a priest who are supposedly knowing more about the soul and how to take care of people? No, and he mentions that there is ample time for rest and entertainment, and each one of you will choose how to use that time. So if you want to learn something new, that's an opportunity for that as well. But regarding to the work, Aniceto wants to make the best use of the time that they have, not only to benefit those who need our fraternal aid, but also to help ourselves in terms of effectiveness. And that's another thing, because there, as you mentioned, there's ways and ways of doing things, but here effectiveness plays a big role. So everybody gets a chance to learn, to progress, but there needs to be effectiveness. So they're not going to waste time or energy or efforts to do things. And that's why maybe, who knows, Andre Louis got prepared through his existence as a physical doctor to then go back and write all those books, because he's got that knowledge about the anatomy and so on, which we will see later on in the books as well, how that is going to be important. So this is the end of the explanations that Aniceto gave to Andre, and he had a moment to think about what he called his curious approach. He was not pushed into a situation without knowing what was expected of him. And Aniceto is still probing him and still checking out, what is Andre all about? Is he really interested? Is he scared with all the strictness and the responsibility I tell him about and of the method that I work with? So Aniceto continues once more to say, the method is not meant to create more obligations for everybody. Here, as on Earth, the one who actually learns the most in class and on field trips is not the student, but the instructor, who enriches his or her observations and deepens his or her level of experience. So, when he was recruited to the job, Aniceto said, I don't want to waste any time for my own betterment and education. Because if you think about it, there is so much for all of us to learn, right? And one life is such a short amount of time compared to eternity. that it is important that we become more effective, that we make the most out of our time. And there is a balance, as he says, you will have ample free time and time for entertainment. So it's not for us to say now, oh my God, I need to learn all the time in this life. It's yes and no. It's use your time wisely, learn as much as you can, but remember to keep the balance and to refresh your mind and your brain as well, to, relax a little bit and to get ready for the next step and for the next lesson. So, and then he finally says, I've said enough for now. If you are willing, I can't possibly say no. Because of what he heard about Andre's journey and process from Tobias, he said, okay, here's the deal. There's 3 spaces left. If you want, you can join. But I'm telling you right now, I won't accept it if you don't collaborate and if you're distracted and if you're not willing to put the best of you into this. And I think Andre is still a bit like marveled by all these concepts and these new things, that he just says, well, your program sounds truly remarkable. And that he's really excited and it would be an honor to serve under you. So he sees the chance and the opportunity in this course for himself. So here he is, very keen on taking this next step and continuing to learn, that he says, yes, I'm ready, I want to go, I want to serve under you and I want to learn. And Aniceto was happy with that and concluded, very well, you can start tomorrow. To finalize, he says to Tobias, please bring Andre to the messenger center tomorrow morning. Aniceto is going to give a class there, and Andre is going to get bonus hours according to the communication guidelines. If you remember, for Spiritists, work is every useful occupation. So the time Andre is spending to learn is also seen as work because it's a constructive occupation that will enable him to work better and to work more effectively in the future. Right, Mackenzie?
More effectively. That's what I think so, Francisca. While you were reading and talking there, explaining Aniceto's method, I was thinking about our work, not only here at Kardec Radio, but everywhere that we work, especially and to ourselves specifically in the Spiritist Center. I was wondering here, and naturally we are not Anicetos and we cannot say exactly the same words that I do something like he did or that I am this way. We're still in that learning process. But once we are in a position, such as Aniceto's position, of having to recruit people to work at the Spiritist Center, we would have to have a mind and really read these words by Aniceto very carefully and think about being effective, being friendly, being welcoming, but being very serious. Because what Aniceto is telling us here is something that I tend to think quite a lot when we are working at the Spiritist Center, because we call ourselves volunteers in the Spiritist Center. There is no money, there is no registry of how much time I go to the Spiritist Center to work or what kind of work I'm doing. Nothing is being taken note by the Spiritist Center. I may take mental notes. Somebody may take mental notes of the type of work or how many hours I did. We shouldn't, but maybe there's a person that takes these kinds of notes. But my point here is being a volunteer. Being a volunteer is something that requires our own will to do it. Nobody is forcing me to do it. Nobody is with a leash on me. Nobody has to charge me or to tell me, oh, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. But at the same time, being a volunteer is something that requires enormous responsibility. And that's what Aniceto is trying to convey, not to Andre. And that's what we need to understand here. He's trying to talk to us as Spiritist workers. He's trying to tell us that it is very important to look at the work that we do in the Spiritist Center independently of the type of work that we do. Remember the types of professions or people that are in his group? I'm just going to remind ourselves of some of them. A Roman Catholic priest. We can substitute this in our Spiritist Center for a person that speaks or for the fraternal counseling. Then there's a doctor that relates to fraternal counseling. Sex engineers. It's one of those people that can do any type of fixing in our Spiritist Center. For teachers, the study groups. For nurses, people who give passes. 2 painters, that goes together with the 6 engineers. 11 women specializing in domestic work, and 18 laborers of various types. A lot of people doing a lot of different work, talking, cooking, cleaning, fixing, giving talks, studying together. Why are we there? What are we doing at the Spiritist Center? Are we expecting personal praise? Are we taking responsibility for the mistakes that we made? These are all in this very, very brief speech from Aniceto. So he is not telling Andre to do this. He is actually inviting us for work and to pay more and more attention in what we are doing. Institution that I work at. It may be a Spiritist institution. It may be a Catholic institution. It may be an evangelical institution. It may be in our work. It may be in the school that I go to. It doesn't matter. It's our work. I am willing to do it. That's what Aniceto is asking, as asking me. Are you, Andre, willing to do it? If you're telling me that you can, I can't possibly say no. But remember, it's a responsible job. You need to be very responsible. How responsible are we with our works? That's what Aniceto is asking ourselves. If we answer like Andre, like Francisca mentioned, it will be an honor to serve under you. Let's just do the work. And that's what I find fascinating about these conversations in this book, in Nossolar's book, in all the other books in this series, is that we can really take these conversations and apply to ourselves. Hopefully, we will be able to follow some of these guidelines that Aniceto is given to us. And Andre is very pleased, and we hope that you are all also very pleased, not with us here, but with the teachings of this book, because as Andre says, highly pleased, we thanked him, and highly pleased, we thank you. And I personally thank Francisca for allowing me to be here once again and to being here together tonight for this wonderful conversation. And then I say goodbye to you, to Francisca, say until next week, filled with a lot of hope, just like Andre finalizes this great chapter.
Thank you, Mackenzie, for your great insights and for taking the time to work so hard and so much and bring this comment to us, your thoughts. And we're very happy, and you beautifully wrapped up tonight's lesson. So I'm going to leave you with this sense of hope and gratefulness in our hearts, and hopefully the willingness to work and to serve others as well. Have a great week, everyone. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.